Sahabi, female from a female.
Women companions, of
From
course.
a woman, yeah.
Of course, the very first Muslim that accepted Islam was Khadija radiallahu anha. Right? Women have been an integral part of Islam from the very beginning. So the very first Muslim is a woman. The first person to sacrifice their life to be a shaheed is a woman. Those are known facts. Khadija radiallahu anha actually is the one who comforted the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. She is the one that told him that no, you're not going crazy. You actually, Allah, you are such a good person that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not allow anything bad to happen to you. She's the one that gave him courage. She gave him moral support, emotional support. She's the one that took him to her uncle Waraqa for him to find out what actually happened. Right? So she's the one that's doing all of this to help the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam with the prophethood. So she's almost like nurturing prophethood for us. Right, as a mother. So that's why she's the mother of the believers, right? Our mother. But there are a lot of other female companions. Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu Allah had two daughters that are famous. So he had Aisha radiallahu anhu Allah, and then the older sister, Asma radiallahu anhu Allah. So she's an integral part also of the beginning of the da'wah. So Asma, she was a teenager when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam migrated from Mecca to Medina. And she was the one who was in charge of bringing them food while they were hiding from Quraysh. And this is not something small. A lot of times we read about it in the history of Surah books and we pass by that. But I want you to think about a teenage girl who is going outside of the city, in the desert, to the mountains, in a cave, to give food to her father and to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. At a time where people were actually searching for the Prophet ﷺ to kill them. And they will kill anybody who's helping them. And they actually put up money for that. Anybody who brings in Muhammad ﷺ and Abu Bakr, dead or alive, will have 100 camels. Right? 100 camels is a lot of money. Right? Like if you compare them to cars nowadays, it's almost like having some, maybe 5-6 Bentleys. Right? It's very expensive. Right? It's a lot of money to be given to a person as a ransom. But she sacrificed that for her life, right? And she actually, she's also called Bantu, the one with the two belts, because she used to, she cut some of her own clothing in her belt to make it, some carrier to take the food to the Prophet ﷺ and to Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu Allah. Right? And her younger brother Abdul Rahman, son of Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu Allah, used to cover her tracks with the sheep and all of that because he was a herder. And so all the families, subhanAllah, they've made a lot of sacrifices. But we'll talk inshallah some more as we go on about some female companions, what they used to do, some of the contributions they have with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And I'm pretty sure some of you will be amazed at some of the things that they have done, inshallah. Yes. Any other questions or comments?
I have a question.
Yes.
You mentioned about the Zubair.
Yes.
How about the Talha?
Talha is somebody we have to talk about in length, inshallah.
Oh.
So next, after Dhuhr and Asr, inshallah, we'll talk about Talha. Talha was also a young man that accepted Islam, so we'll talk about him, inshallah. Alright. Yes, go ahead.
I wonder, you tell us a lot of story about the Sahaba. Now, I have small kids, 10 and 8 years old. And try to get them close to the Sahabi profile and their story and these kind of things. However, our society, like the movie they watch, the figure, like Superman, Spider-Man, these kind of things, really violating the value that we want to inculcate in our kids. So maybe you can give us some tips for us as a parents, how to, me and my husband,
To get them more attention to the Sahaba.
Yeah, to get them close to this profile in this kind of society that we live in.
I mean, that's a very heavy thing. First, as a parent, you have control of what you watch, what your kids kind of watch and indulge in and all of that to a great extent, right? I mean, once they go to school, that control is completely gone if they go to public school. But nonetheless, in the home, at least you're in control of what they see, what they eat, everything, right? What they consume. So, like the movie that they had last night, Bilal, the movie, right? Things of this nature is very important to get the kids to actually be into these stories in the new way of them watching movies and shows and all of that. And there's a lot of those on YouTube, right? There's the story of the Prophet ﷺ in animation. There's the actual movie that was shot back in in 75. So we have some media help there that if you want. So they are there on YouTube that you can actually look up and get them to watch. And the thing is, as a parent, we need to understand why there's a fixation with all of these movies that we have, with all these heroes. I've heard one of a great dad has actually said that the reason why they've created this whole thing with Marvel and DC and all of those companies that have all of these superheroes is because there's a lack of real heroes. So they needed to make up heroes, right, with powers. Somebody to look up to, like, I want to, oh yes, this is a person I want to kind of be attached to. We don't need to do that. Alhamdulillah, we have thousands of heroes in Islam that came from the Prophet time until our time, right? In all different parts of the world. The thing is, we need to be familiar with them, right? And then once we're familiar with them, we need to get our kids familiar with them. We need to, you know, all those bedtime stories and all those things that we give, we can, you know, use the seerah of the Prophet and the companions in that. If we are familiar with the stories of the companions, we can bring excerpts of it, little pieces of it, share it from time to time, and instill it over and over and over again, right? Different parts of the story, like whatever your child loves, you pretty much tell them stories that have something to do with it, right? So the companions, I mean, there's so many of them. There are hundreds of thousands of them. Hundreds of them are very famous that we can use to actually get ourselves and our children attached to them, inshallah. So I will say first we have to be familiar ourselves. And then, of course, getting the kids to be enculturated with those stories. That they get so familiar with it that those names are just instilled in them. Right? You want them to be able to memorize their names so much that when the moment you mention them, they have an image or some story that comes into their mind. Because if you look at all these movies, that's how they do it. They market it in a way where that character has some unique powers, some unique story, something about them, and they make them human also. They show some flaw in their story. Because if they're just all powerful, we get attached to them a little bit, and then we're like, this, I can't attach, right? I can't really relate. But they make them human with all the mistakes, all the little stuff and all of that, to the point where the person's like, oh yeah, I can be somebody like that. It's possible. That's subliminally that what comes in. So it's important for us to share those stories about the companions as well. Like last night with the youth, I was sharing the story with the Prophet ﷺ and Aisha. And I mentioned the story where she was getting really jealous. And she actually had a little attitude with the Prophet ﷺ in a way. Right? And someone was surprised, like, oh, what? Aisha had attitude? Right? It's not in a bad way. It's just husband and wife. It happens. But it humanizes them to them, right? They understand that those people, they were just human beings. Right? They had their bad days, they had their good days, they made mistakes, they get angry, they fall in love, they do all of those things. Right? It's just we need to look at their life in that much detail to really appreciate them. So like I said, if we really appreciate them first, it will be easy for us to pass it down, inshallah. Inshallah. Hopefully that's it. Any other questions or comments? I haven't heard anything in that section.